Be one of the best games we've ever seen. Two of the best quarterbacks that just gave us two of the best seasons.
Inject this game right smack dab in the mile. I want every bit of it.
One guy had 0 offers out of high school. The other was told to play receiver. How did we get here?
There's been a lot of doubt going on. Me being a running back, receiver, I feel I should have a chance at quarterback.
I was begging teams to, give me a scholarship. If you knew who I was 3 years ago, I don't think you would say this is possible.
The Buffalo Bills select Josh Allen. Baltimore Ravens select Lamar Jackson.
They're going to get a Super Bowl out of me. Me that.
Thank you to the Bills organization. I'm going to make them look like they're the smartest people out there.
This is just unfathomable.
This is a loss that sticks with a franchise forever.
Tremendous disappointment in the postseason for Lamar Jackson on an MVP evening.
I need the naysayers to keep going, keep adding fuel to that fire for me to keep being Lamar Jackson.
It's a funny thing how things work out. Not getting offered motivates you to play a little better, play a little harder.
Oh, my goodness.
A Josh Allen explosion. Lamar Jackson does it again.
We are witnessing something special.
We judge MVP based on our eyes and how we feel.
I hate how this conversation has just turned ugly. Both have had elite seasons.
Enough talk about who's the best. Everyone has been looking forward to this one.
Couldn't ask for anything more. This is going to be played at the highest possible level.
Two of the best quarterbacks to ever play the game.
One of those rare moments when two living legends collide.
Well, folks, it is time to get it sorted. Welcome to HQ Pregame, 1 hour of anticipation alongside my guys, Bryant McFadden and Christian Fourier. Fellas, this is the good stuff. How we feeling?
Great.
We ready to rock?
Great. No question. Excited.
Heavyweight match, punishing football, tough, lot on the line for both sides, legacy type game.
I'm glad you bill it as a fight because we're going to do this tail of the tape throughout and sort of look at this one. But at the top of it, you fellas, 2 rings apiece sitting next to me here. So you're well abreast of the fact that this is the strength of 11 all at once. Only room for 2 on the marquee, and we know who that is. The 2 quarterbacks in this game, Mac. How does this 60 minutes change the way we say those names?
Well, when you look at both quarterbacks during the regular season, they've been outstanding. 2 of the best quarterbacks in the National Football League. But this is a new season. Playoff football and regular season football is night and day. When you talk about mistakes, they come at the bare minimum. Execution is at all-time high. So which quarterback will be able to provide the same success they had throughout the entire season in today's matchup? Because both players play exceptionally well in their first round matchup. But as you get deeper into the playoffs, it gets difficult. It becomes more intense. So which quarterback will lead their team to victory like they've done the entire season?
So as far as the big picture narrative, annoying narrative that everybody's talking about, the quarterbacks and whose legacy is more important, I go back to, Peyton Manning. I go back to, Steve Young and how you're not really considered part of the elite group. Even if you have 2 MVPs, even if you have a lot of victories, the one thing I remember them always saying about Peyton Manning, with all his success, it was like, yeah, but he's like the best regular season quarterback in the history of the league until he won one. So, unfortunately, this is just the way we judge quarterbacks. Like, if you go to Pro Football Reference, what your stats, they will never have a win-loss stat next to your name with all the seasons, all the catches and wins that I've had. You'll never see a win-loss record with me. Quarterbacks, even though they don't play defense, they have a win-loss record. So these games and these playoff games matter for legacy.
Don't mean a thing if you don't got the ring, per se.
Cheesy, but it works.
These 2 quarterbacks do mirror one another in that way. And these 2 teams mirror one another in so many ways. The personnel, the game plan. We're looking for what's going to separate them on this day, Mac. What's that wrinkle, something schematic on either side that you're really keyed in on in this matchup?
Well, of course, when you talk about the Baltimore Ravens, we know they should run the football. But oftentimes, when you think you know what you're going to see, you might not get it. And I go back to my rookie year when you talk about the Pittsburgh Steelers and the run we had going into the playoffs. We were known to be a team that loved to run the football, play great defense, right? And that second-round matchup against the Indianapolis Colts, the first 4 or 5 plays were all passes. We kind of caught Indy in a vulnerable position because they prepared for the ground and pound attack, but the play action was something that was wide open, and that kind of jump-started our efforts in that matchup to be able to go to a Super Bowl win. I'm not saying Baltimore should just abandon the run, but we do expect to see.
We saw We saw
that.
that.
That's what I'm saying. But we do expect to see Derrick Henry. But at some point in time, especially early in the game, get the play action going as well, because that could be an opportunity to take a shot down the football field. Because if I'm Buffalo, I'm all in trying to find a way to slow down Derrick Henry, especially to start the game off.
And to your point, I always sit there and I'm curious about who's a real game time, like game scheme, like a team. Like, do you change your identity based on the defense that you're playing and how well they are? So for Baltimore, I think about it like this. When it comes to like their identity and what they need to do well, it's just as simple as me for just play a clean game, because they really have every other advantage known to man. But what they've been struggling with during the season was they were one of the most penalized team in the NFL. They've only had 8 penalties in the last 3 games. They've also nearly over the last 2 months, they haven't turned it over once. And Buffalo is second in the league in getting turnovers. So is it as simple as just playing a clean game? After watching all the games the last couple days, good teams do bad things and they panic and they freak out and they can't overcome their own mistakes. Even though they technically on paper should be winning, they can't overcome the penalties, their turnovers. So it's as simple as that for me in Baltimore.
Turnovers, time of possession, key indicators this time of year, and getting yourself one step closer to those places that you have not been before. Keys there for Baltimore. Mac, your biggest key for the Ravens is what?
Derrick Henry. Derrick Henry, when you look at the 5 losses for the Baltimore Ravens, right? Derrick Henry, he's averaged 14 totes in those 5 losses, only 70 yards. The sweet spot for Derrick Henry, you want to get him going, but if you can give him at least 20 carries, his numbers have shown us he's going to get at least 90 yards. So if you can find a way to get number 22 going like they did in the first matchup, that makes the entire offense flow easily, especially with the quarterback in Lamar Jackson. So that's the key. That's the biggest key to a victory for the Ravens. Find a way to get Derrick Henry at least 20 touches. And if he gets 20 touches, mark my word, he will have at least 90 yards in this ball game.
We've sat here for the better part of this week and tried to figure out what is going to be the difference. How are these teams going to separate themselves? And I'm seeing multiple ways that the Ravens can win this football game. I can only see 17, the path to victory for the Buffalo Bills. What's their biggest key, Christian?
For the Buffalo Bills, well, when I think about that, it's more of defensively how they're going to stop this running game and how they're going to slow down everybody. And I think about like what has happened the past couple of weeks and the film that the Buffalo Bills have been able to watch. Think about it, like they saw the Steelers get beat up, just play terrible defense. That's all teaching tape, in my opinion. That's all like learning opportunities. Listen, guys, we're not like this. This is not how we play. The Steelers may play it like this, but we're much better. So I think it's a great opportunity for them to learn from other people's mistakes.
Yeah, and for me, when it comes to Buffalo, when you look at the matchup last night with the Detroit Lions and the Washington Commanders, no question Washington played a phenomenal game. But one element that we're not talking about is how smart they were with the football. They protected the football. Detroit did not. So if you're Buffalo, you're at home, you have to find a way to win the turnover battle. Because one thing we know about playoff football, the team that plays the smartest and protects the football will be in a position to win ball games. That has always been the telling sign in terms of who wins and who loses. So with Buffalo, you're looking at what they're going against. Lamar Jackson, Derrick Henry, you look at Roquan Smith, Kyle Hamilton. They got a lot of studs. But if you can win the turnover battle, especially at home, that will put you in a position to be able to win this ball game.
Find your advantage in it and find yourself headed to an AFC title game. A trip to KC is on the line. Just scratching the surface. Plenty more coming here on CBS Sports HQ. Next up, we take you through that tale of the tape, position by position. Who's got the advantage in this clash of titans? That and more coming after a quick timeout. Back on HQ, where it's well known that MVP is a regular season award, but you get these two in one place and you know it's going to get loud. MVP favorites Lamar Jackson and Josh Allen due for battle, while the individual accolades are nice to Lombardi, the focus for both. Back in the studio with the guys as we go position by position to find the advantage in this matchup separated by so little, and the obvious place to start once again is between those two quarterbacks. All pro per the AP, per his peers, that belongs to Lamar Jackson. Plenty think that that indicates a third MVP win for Jackson. But as you look at these two, can you find an advantage, Christian, one way or the other in terms of one having an edge?
I personally feel like it's now we're splitting hairs here now, okay, but we're going to do it for the show. I look at Josh Allen. And if you're taking everything into account, his playoff numbers, the weather, and how elite he is in the playoffs, you got to think that the quarterback edge should go to Josh Allen, especially that he's playing at home. They're 8-0 at home. And when it's below freezing, the team is 14-2. And you look at his overall stats in the playoffs, he's almost second to nobody when it comes to how good he is playing. When it comes to quarterbacks with 5 or more starts in the playoffs, he's #1 in yards per game. He's #1 in TDs per game. He's #1 in TD to interception ratio, which is 23-4. He's got the most rushing yards ever. Now, in the cold weather, playing at home, home field advantage. For a kid from Fresno, he's awfully good in cold weather games. It's amazing, but you know, I don't know if I'll give him credit for playing at Wyoming. That kind of changed the way his mindset is about cold weather. But he's an elite postseason quarterback.
Well, for me, I agree with you, Christian. This is splitting hairs. Both quarterbacks are high level. They're both elite. But I'm on the opposite side. I'm taking Lamar Jackson in terms of having the advantage because when you look at this offense, no question, it runs through him. But he also has the luxury of playing with another playmaker that opposing defenders, they have to account for as well. So when you factor in what Derrick Henry can do, it actually helps Lamar Jackson because he can get matchups. Look at what happened, how they started the game against the Pittsburgh Steelers. RPOs, the read option. They were collapsing down on Derrick Henry because of the respect that he commands. But that left Lamar Jackson free running lanes to kind of get things going with the running element. Not to mention what he's done from throwing within the pocket has been unbelievable. That was something that we criticized Lamar Jackson. The inability to do what? Throw from within the pocket. He's been the best pocket throwing quarterback in the National Football League. And yes, it's going to be cold, but the last time I checked, Baltimore gets pretty frigid as well. They don't play in the dome. They play outside. That's the AFC North, so they should be acclimated to playing in these frigid temperatures that they will play in Buffalo today. So I understand he's a Florida kid. It's okay. Put the big coat on the sideline, but when he steps on the football field, it's time to go to battle, and he's been going to battle the entire season, and he's been winning. So I'm taking Lamar Jackson when you talk about the advantage in this quarterback matchup.
I would just like to apologize on behalf of the production team. They made you sit through that tape again, that Steelers tape.
Unfortunately. I'm a professional.
You are.
I have to be.
It was a tough watch. We'll try not to watch it anymore. But to both of your points.
I mean, we could easily each take the other quarterback just as well.
You can make, it's like you're at the Rolls-Royce dealership.
Yeah.
You want the Cullinan or do you want the Phantom? It's like, we going big body or are we going with Lamar? But
I'll take the Phantom.
Both. Put me down for the Cullinan, I guess. Let's talk about the pass catching groups because maybe this is where these two groups are a little bit different, but at the same time, each has two capable pass-catching tight ends.
Yes.
Maybe receiver groups that are effective, but in brand name lacking in some ways, Mac. Who has the edge in that one?
Well, I'm taking the Buffalo Bills, Joe Christian, and here's why. With Baltimore not having their top wide receiver option is Zay Flowers, one of the best playmakers in the passing game, that really brings them down a notch. I do love the similarities with the tight ends, very, very capable, athletic tight ends, but not having Zay Flowers gives me the advantage with Buffalo. You have to factor in and remember, yes, we haven't seen Amari Cooper really give us that Amari Cooper-like game, but he is still a player we have to respect. He is the best wide receiver one in this ball game. Not to mention, you look at what Khalil Shakur has done, Keon Coleman, Dalton Kincaid. You can't forget about barefoot Mac Hollins as well. So when you look at the plethora of options at the pass catcher position for the Buffalo Bills, I side with them in terms of pass catchers, wide receivers collectively. I go with the Bills.
See, for me, this is going to be a crazy surprise, but I'm going to take the Ravens, most importantly, because of their tight ends. And I think the scheme advantage with the play action and the bootleg and everything that they do with Isaiah Likely and Mark Andrews, 17 touchdowns between those two. Isaiah Likely just turning into a real solid quarterback. And then the other guys are feasting off like the leftovers when it comes to Bateman and Aguilar. They just exist. And when they cross the 20-yard line, that's when the tight ends do most of their work. They have a 74 completion percentage when it comes to scoring touchdowns in the red zone, and the tight ends are a huge part of that. So for that alone, Dawson Knox is good, Kincaid is good as well, but there's something about that scheme advantage where I kind of leaned toward the Baltimore Ravens and their receivers.
And if you want to talk about dying for one between those 4 tight ends, Mark Andrews knows what it's like to be in these moments. Certainly the other 2 on Buffalo do as well, but there was a veteran presence there that is one of the vocal leaders of that team in the Ravens. We'll see how it plays out there when the ball is in the air, but it's the ground game, fellas.
No question.
In some way, shape, or form. Quarterback, running back, both of them capable and have running backs to complement. Yes, Derrick Henry has been a world beater, but James Cook, same number of touchdowns, not the yardage that Henry has this season, Mac. There's good, there's great, and then there's Derrick Henry. Tell me why he gives the edge here.
His nickname is the King, and he didn't give himself that nickname. He earned it. He plays to that level, so the advantage, no slight to James Cook because he's been cooking the entire season, but King Henry is him, as the kids say. Outstanding player in terms of what this matchup is. Playoff football is suited for Derrick Henry. Cold, gloomy, it's icy, and you have to go tackle someone who's 6'3", 245, 248, who runs a 4.4. I don't want to sign up for that. Me, I don't want any of that. So when you factor in what he's done, especially this relationship that he has in the backfield with this quarterback and Lamar Jackson, clearly the edge goes to Baltimore with King Henry and what he's done throughout the course of the season, and not to mention what he did last week in the playoff game against the Pittsburgh Steelers as well.
This reminded me of a story when I was a rookie, and I had my big brother on the Seattle Seahawks. His name was Dwayne Bickett, and he was an old-timer All-American from USC. And I remember he played against Eric Dickerson, and I was like, but I didn't know this. I just asked him, hey, who's the toughest guy you ever had to tackle? And he said Eric Dickerson. And then he listed all the reasons why. And everything that people say about Derrick Henry, his speed, his size to speed ratio, his intelligence, and nobody gives him credit for that also. His ability to kind of understand where the tackles are coming from, stiff-arm people, it's the same thing. So when we even had this question, I felt sorry that we were going to ignore James Cook. Yeah. But we have to because there isn't even a close second when it comes to best running back in this game.
In a league of his own, or maybe a league with only one other in it, and that other is not James Cook. James Cook going to be massive in this matchup, but an edge certainly goes the way of the King. Let's talk defense, Mac. I know your eyes always go there first, so thank you for your patience.
No question.
These are 2 defensive units that have been put under the microscope, let's say, throughout this season, and both have responded to that call, but which one more effectively?
In this matchup, per se, I'm taking the Baltimore Ravens, and here's why. You're playing against a very, very athletic quarterback, so you have to have versatile players on the defensive side to be able to try to slow Josh Allen down. Well, that fits the Baltimore Ravens. You look at their top 3 playmakers on the defensive side. Roquan Smith, the brains of the operation. Extremely instinctive, very, very athletic, can flow sideline to sideline, or he can be a bully doing damage in between the tackles. You look at Kyle Hamilton. Versatility is his nickname. They've done a phenomenal job when they've moved him to the post. It really improved all areas of their defense, not to mention what he can do around the box. And then lastly, Marlon Humphrey. You talk about another outstanding playmaker with versatility as well. We talk about what he does in coverage side of things, but what he does in tackling, I love that element for Marlon Humphrey. 3 high-level players that can really play in different styles, not to mention they have the versatility that will be needed in a matchup like this against one of the more athletic, versatile quarterbacks in the game in Josh Allen. So I'm taking the Ravens in terms of defense because we look at those 3, the big 3 for the Baltimore Ravens, they've been playing outstanding football over the last few weeks.
So this may be a stretch also, but I think the Bills actually have the advantage, and here's why as well, because the amount of tape that they have to learn from, and I mentioned this earlier in the show when we started, and I couple that with the fact that 2 of their best tacklers who didn't play in the first game, week 4, are back, Milano and Gerard, and then you throw in Johnson, who is probably one of the best nickel cornerbacks in the league right now, and then D-Mac, I look at that Steeler tape, and if I'm Bobby Babbage, I am putting that tape on, and I'm saying, guys, These Steeler defensive players did not want to tackle Derrick Henry. They did not want to even be out there. That tape looked like a bunch of guys who just wanted to make sure they didn't get hurt. That's an asset to Bobby Babich and this Buffalo Bills defense. We know that he's hard to tackle.
Yeah.
We know that he's fast and he's strong. But first of all, come with a commitment to tackle him. Understand that even if he runs you over, it's fine as long as he ends up on top of you and he's not running for 70 yards. I think the advantage, for some crazy way, I think the Bills have the advantage with all the information as how not to do it playing against the Baltimore Ravens.
We got one more to get to here. Before we go there, Mac, I'm interested in what you would do if you had the headset on here. This is a team that on first and second down, the Buffalo Bills, 80% of the time they are in that big nickel with Teron Johnson, a willing tackler. But do you need as many linebackers out there? Are you coming out in base against Derrick Henry?
And that's the thing. I don't know. Well, I have yet to see Buffalo utilize base personnel defensively. Where you have 3 or 4 defensive backs and 3 linebackers or so. They usually play nickel, which fits what they do against most offenses. But when you're playing against a big running back that comes in regular personnel, 21 packages or 12 packages, that's a run-oriented play. So if you're talking about utilizing Teron Johnson, who I love as well, Christian, I'm right there with you. He's a high-level nickel. But that's a tall task to ask a nickel to go run up on a 6'3", 250-pound running back that's looking for issues, that's running with bad intentions.
Looking for issues.
He's looking for issues,
like
right?
That.
Give me a reason.
And
Trying
that's
to gauge your pain tolerance.
No question, and that's the thing as well. One last thing I'll say, the lack of size for Buffalo in the interior of the defensive line. Ed Oliver is a dog, but he's roughly around 300 pounds, if that. You know, and he's one of the bigger defenders when you talk about in the interior. So those could be issues, but most importantly, if they can swarm to the football, they should be in a better situation than what we saw at the first meeting.
Tackling requires willingness, I'm sure uttered by many coaches before. We're here to talk coaches as well. I got 2 guys with 2 rings that have played for 2 of the best, Coach Cowher, Coach Belichick. Coming into a game like this, there's an importance in that messaging. When you look at the advantage in this game, Mac, who do you give that to? There's a pelt on the wall in one room more than a decade ago. How much does that matter?
It matters because he understands and he knows what it takes to get to the promised land. I'm giving the advantage. Sean McDermott has done a great job in Buffalo, right, and what he's created there. But for this particular matchup, I'm taking Coach Harbaugh, and here's why. He's 13-10 in his career in playoffs. He's found ways to do more with less in some situations, but granted, being able to keep everything afloat this season has been outstanding. Sean McDermott, he's 6-6 in his career in playoffs. We have to remind ourselves as well, the last 3 divisional matchups, he's 0-3. He's 0-3 in this week of playoff football. That's a tall hurdle when you look at the teams that he's coached in the last 3 divisional opportunities. Me personally, I felt like that was a disappointment because the last 3, if you look at those teams, especially the last 2 divisional games in which they lost, they were more than capable of winning that ball game. Going back to last year, where they lost to who? I understand who he is, but that was a capable game for them to win, and they squandered it away. So lack of adjustments and second-half football has really played a part in some of the missed opportunities. And when you look at Coach Harbaugh, you talked about the penalties we saw early in the year. He's got that out of the building. He's been coaching to a high level, and I'm taking that Coach Harbaugh in this matchup when you look at both head coaches.
And I would go Harbaugh also, and even just the adjustments that he made last year, this year, having a young defensive coordinator like Zach Orr, and then realizing that maybe Zach needed a little bit more help, and then he's bringing in Dean Pease as just a consultant who's won championships on his own. But when I decide which guy I kind of like relate to, you know, one guy's a former wrestler and McDermott, and he's a just hard-o, tough guy, you know, stalking the sidelines. And I feel like Harbaugh, for the most part, like the messaging speaks to me a little bit more than McDermott. Again, I think we're splitting hairs because they're both accomplished and they've both done a lot. But Harbaugh's only got, 4 playoff wins in the last 14 years. So he's due to make a statement, and I'm sure he's got his team ready.
And most importantly, it certainly feels like both the unrelenting belief of the room that they are speaking to. So much to look forward to in this matchup, including how they move those chess pieces. We got more to look forward to here on HQ. Straight ahead, we prop it up. Our sharps turning the storylines into money lines, where the odds makers might have left you an opportunity. We find that place next. Quick look at your HQ headlines, where closer Tanner Scott and the Dodgers have agreed to a 4-year, $72 million deal that's been confirmed by our Jim Bowden. The All-Star left-hander split past season with Miami and San Diego, tallying a 175 earned run average across 72 appearances. It's been a busy offseason for the Dodgers, who signed Roki Sasaki and Blake Snell in free agency and retained Teoscar Hernandez. Elsewhere, commissioners did not vote on Sunday regarding possible changes to the college football playoff formatting. That likely tables any updates to seeding or quarterfinal sites until next scheduled meeting, that coming on May 6th. The national championship game between Notre Dame and Ohio State tomorrow night in Atlanta. Meantime, in golf news, Colin Morikawa has withdrawn from next week's Farmers Insurance Open. The world's number 4 player will be replaced by Wesley Bryan. The Farmers will get started this upcoming Wednesday in San Diego at Torrey Pines. Back up on HQ as kick grows close. The Ravens coming into Sunday a short favorite. Back in week 4, Baltimore left no doubt behind Derrick Henry's 199 yards, a season high, but that was in Charm City. Today, we battle in Buffalo, where the Bills are a perfect 9-0 this season. Back with the fellas, Bryant McFadden and Christian Fourier, and we are joined by the sharpest man in sports as well, Todd Furman, here entering the conversation. Todd, we're propping it up with our favorites. We've heard from these fellas and where they think the advantage lies in many of these positions. I want to take you straight to Lamar Jackson. What do you love? How do you project him today?
You know, for me, Joe, I'm going to go to his passing yardage number, and I'm going to make a case to go under. Now, I know this price is a little bit beat up where we currently sit. Was as high as 220 earlier in the day. We're now down to 211.5, and you can understand why. When you begin to look at this Buffalo Bills defense is currently constructed, they love to live in nickel as their base defense. They want to try and take away the explosive plays over the top, and I think without Zay Flowers in the mix for the Ravens, they have to be a lot more methodical, which means 2 tight end sets. And while I'm not going to take anything away from what Isaiah Likely and Mark Andrews can do down the field, I just don't see the big play as part of their arsenal. I think this is a game where if you're Baltimore, you commit to the ground game in the frigid cold. Those 2- and 3-yard runs for Derrick Henry turn into much more explosive plays later in the game. And as a result, we see the passing volume for Lamar continue to subside. I'm going to take him under his total at 211.5 tonight.
Well, Todd, you talked about Baltimore committing themselves to the run. It actually plays a big part in my prop with Lamar Jackson. I love his rushing prop. It's set at 56 and a hook right now. The reason why I love the over in terms of that prop for Lamar Jackson, if you look at what Baltimore has done with Lamar in the last 3 ball games, including the playoff game against the Pittsburgh Steelers, he had 81 yards rushing against Pittsburgh. The final 2 games of the regular season, 63 and 87. They've made it a key point to get Lamar going, either calling QB design running plays or just Lamar improvising on the fly. I think there has to be a common theme for them offensively to be able to keep things open for Derrick Henry. So I'm taking over 56 and a hook for Lamar Jackson in terms of rushing.
I was looking at that under 211 passing yards myself as well, and I saw it as high as 226, and it's been dropping like crazy as closer to the game goes. And it's really for the same reasons. And if you just look at Lamar Jackson versus a Sean McDermott defense, he's faced him 4 times, and he's never even hit 162 yards passing. So there's nothing in me that makes me believe that he can get over 211 in a game that's going to be focused on running the football in inclement weather with an obvious mindset of we are going to bludgeon the Buffalo Bills defense and hope a play-action pass will kind of get us going.
Well, let's take it to the battering ram next. Derrick Henry, not going to make a whole lot of money fading King Henry in many spots, Todd, but talk to me about the pricing right now, where they set those numbers. Are we properly projecting what Derrick Henry will be in this game?
I mean, look, Joe, we're not in Saquon Barkley territory, and I thought his total at 113.5, that one of the highest that we've seen all season, you were going to have to work a little bit to go over, but as we've seen so far in the game currently going on, it didn't matter there. And when I look at Derrick Henry's over-under for rushing yards, look, it's right where I have it forecasted in the mid-90s. I don't think it offers us a lot of upside to go over, but I also don't want to be sitting there with an under ticket, given what we saw against this undersized Bills defensive front, even a group that played without 3 starters the first time around. Instead, the market that I want to attack, it may be low-hanging fruit, but I think Derrick Henry has a big workload put on his plate today. I'm going to take him over 19.5 carries. You look at what he's done in some of these high-leverage spots for the Baltimore Ravens. You feed the horse early, you feed him often, and you continue to give him the ball deep into the game. The only way, in my opinion, that Henry struggles to carry the ball 20 times or more is if Buffalo is playing with a multiple-score lead and Baltimore is game-scripted away from being able to run it. I don't see that being the scenario. Played in a narrow window. I'll take Henry over 19.5 totes. I think he's got a better opportunity to flirt with that 23 to 25 attempt threshold.
Todd, great minds think alike. I'm right there with you. I love over 19.5 rushing attempts, and here's why. When you look at the 5 losses for the Baltimore Ravens throughout this season, Derrick Henry, in those 5 losses, he only had 14 attempts, rushing attempts. That's not the smart thing to do. You look at what he's done when he's had an uptick in his volume. He has delivered big-time numbers. You have to continue to ride King Henry. He's been great with you, not to mention opening things up for the entire offense. So I'm taking over 19 a hook rushing attempts for King Henry.
So for me, I looked at the Henry prop as almost something I would add to a parlay based on the fact that there's so many options when they get inside the 20. Now, if you told me the ball is on the 1-yard line, I would say 100% Derrick Henry is getting the ball. Yeah. Now, if you're at the 8, maybe the 12, I'd probably change my mind a little bit and say there's maybe it's going to be Mark Andrews, maybe it's going to be Isaiah Likely, even Justice Hill. Like, one of those guys is going to be involved. But that's where you're not really getting a lot of value for your money when you go anytime touching with Derrick Henry. But I still kind of like it.
All right, well, that is where we think Derrick Henry will be in this matchup. Todd, if you've already implied maybe a chase game script here for the Bills in moments, does that mean volume for Josh Allen in the arm?
I don't think the Bills are chasing this game today, Joe. So for me, when I look at the passing numbers, both the attempts, completions, and yardage number, I think it can go a number of different ways depending on how Joe Brady wants to scheme up attacking this Ravens defense that we know has been stout against the run and has been solidified against the pass as the year has progressed. But the more I dig into this Ravens defense, I think there are some real questions that have to be addressed given the strength of schedule they played down the stretch. The area where I think Josh Allen can add the most value, it's not his over-under in total rushing yards, which you're being forced to pay a premium on the same way you are for attempts, but it's with the longest rush at 12.5. And it's not going to come from a design run that Baltimore will be ready for. It's his ability to extend plays in the pocket in passing situations where he can elude that first defender, get away from the pass rush, and turn what normal quarterbacks would have for a 5 or 6 yard gain into a bigger run. Now, the reason this number is as low as it is, you dig into what Josh Allen has done in recent weeks, and he just hasn't had the explosive as a part of his arsenal. But I look at those higher leverage games, contests against the Rams, the Lions, and the Chiefs. He's shown a willingness in those spots to drop his shoulder, pick up some of those extra yards. And I think as a result, this is the only value that exists in the Josh Allen rushing market. I'll take him over 12.5 yards for his longest attempt.
Well, you talk about volume. I'm surprised to see this prop have plus money. Anytime Josh Allen touchdown. It's plus 100 right now. And the thing I love about this prop with Josh Allen, he can score a touchdown in a multitude of ways. We've seen the tush push or the Bills push with Josh Allen involved, not to mention his ability to scramble and score a touchdown running. So I'm loving anytime touchdown with Josh Allen. And like I said, there is some juice in that orange plus 100.
When it comes to Josh Allen props, I wanted to stick with a rushing total. But based on how good this Baltimore Ravens defense is, I think you probably have more luck just going to attempts. And I have it at 8.5 rush attempts at minus 120. I feel like there's going to be a lot of broken plays. There's going to be design plays, quarterback counters, quarterback red zone plays, goal line plays, gotta have it plays. Josh Allen is going to run the ball at least 10 times, whether it's a designed run or it's a broken play. So I feel comfortable with that one.
Third down, red zone, fourth and short, the break glass in case of emergency.
Gotta have it.
Is Josh Allen run. We'll see if we can get him over that 8.5. Todd Furman, trying to identify where the ball's going in this offense when it is in the air has been difficult this season. It's been spreading it out to just about everybody. Where are we profitable for a pass catcher for the Bills?
Yeah, and Joe, it's just as challenging for odds makers when they have to try and set numbers on some of these guys, because just when you think you have the pecking order identified, you get the Curtis Samuel breakout performance that we saw last week against the Denver Broncos. So for me, I want to go after a guy that I think is being a little bit undervalued, and you can understand why given his current form. It's the grizzled veteran that the Bills made a focal point to go out and acquire before the trade deadline from the Cleveland Browns, and that would be Amari Cooper. He's got a level of familiarity going up against this Ravens defensive backfield in the past, and I think this is the perfect buy low opportunity to go over 22.5 receiving yards with Cooper in this spot. He can be an upper echelon route runner. He can make an opposing defensive back second guess where he's trying to go with some of his route concepts. And when I look at this Ravens team, since they moved Marlon Humphrey to the slot, I think Khalil Shakir could have his hands full. I think Amari Cooper is that sleeper potential to try and have that breakout performance. And when I say breakout, I'm not looking for him to flirt with the century mark. Just 2 catches, 25 yards, and it gets us across the finish line. I'm taking Coop over 22.5 receiving yards.
Hey, Todd, let me find out you were looking over my shoulder in class and looking at my test.
Was it that way?
Yeah, I don't know what's going. The first one I felt like it was a coincidence.
I was thinking you tapped into the Furman Wi-Fi.
I'm thinking Furman tapped into my Wi-Fi. What about that? But hey, Todd, great minds think alike once again. I'm right there with you because we've been waiting for Amari Cooper to kind of give us that Amari Cooper-like game, right? He's been dealing with injuries, and he's shown flashes here or there. But with that receiving number at 23 in the hook, with the veteran experience that he brings into this game, and he's finally healthy, I believe he will get the targets to be able to go over this prop. And that was a key point with Marlon Humphrey being the nickel corner for the Baltimore Ravens, because you look at the perimeters in terms of the corners, you got a rookie in Wiggins and Stevenson who has really been up and down throughout the course of this season. So when you look at those matchups, one would think Josh Allen would like Amari Cooper in those said matchups in terms of perimeter pass catchers. So give me Amari Cooper over 23 in the hook receiving yards.
So you got 4 really good tight ends in this game. And if you look at the Buffalo Bills, Dawson Knox and Dalton Kincaid, I lean towards Dalton Kincaid and over 3.5 receptions, and here's why. These are cheap, easy opportunities in a game like this. Flat routes, stick routes, chip release on an edge rusher, and you're just looking for an opportunity. And I don't think you're going to be pushing the ball downfield. So the tight ends are going to be a big part of this package. And if you can maybe even pair the two together, you go Dawson Knox and Dalton Kincaid combined over 7. I think you can make some money.
At his tight end, talking tight end.
I know.
Hits the tuning fork in my soul like that, but close to it. Todd Furman talking game line is always a place I like to go. 1.5. It's been short either way since it opened up. Total coming in at 51.5. Maybe he tipped his hand earlier. I took him there. Todd Furman, which side of this number do you fall on?
And Joe, I'll put the caveat on this, that me doing this week in, week out. The money's not any greener that you can make in the playoffs than what we can find in the preseason or on a Monday or Thursday night game in the regular season. And I'm always a slave to my numbers in the grand scheme of it. So I don't show a tremendous amount of value in this particular spot, but I was in line with where this number opened as the Bills a modest 1.5 point favorite. So with the number flipping to the Ravens now a road favorite, I'm going to back Buffalo here plus the 1. Do I love the X's and O's in the trenches in this game? No, I don't. But the difference that I feel you're going to get here is home field advantage that's tougher to quantify in this particular spot. Lamar Jackson has been asked about playing in this kind of frigid temperatures and admitted that he hasn't played in weather this cold, didn't want to use 2 gloves, said that was something that he saved for Teddy 2 gloves. And when I look at Sean McDermott, Christian brought up what he's been able to do to kind of scheme up ways to slow Lamar down in the passing attack. I think the Bills are going to try and commit to at least neutralizing this Ravens ground game, and Josh Allen at home. Even if he can't win the MVP, he can win the bigger prize here and set up a showdown in an AFC championship with his arch nemesis and Patrick Mahomes. I'm going to take the home underdog here, Bills plus the 1, and expect them to punch their ticket to Arrowhead for the conference championship next weekend.
Well, I'm on the opposite side of this one, Todd. I'm taking the Ravens, giving 1 in the hook, and here's why. When you look at the dual backfield with Lamar Jackson and Derrick Henry, I think that could be an issue once again, because we know one thing about Buffalo Bills, they lack size in terms of the internal part of their defense, not to mention they utilize nickel more so than any team when you look at this particular matchup. I think the lack of size plays a big advantage with Baltimore and how they do things. And even without Zay Flowers, you cannot forget about the tight end matchup, because the thing I love about Baltimore, they can utilize 2 tight ends on the football field. And if you want to go nickel, those 2 tight ends have the ability to block. So that's a matchup in favor of the Baltimore Ravens. Not to mention with the bigger guys at the tight end position, they can really create separation against smaller defenders in the secondary. So when you look at the matchup, styles makes fights. This is a style that might be a little too much for the Buffalo Bills on the defensive side. So I'm taking Baltimore laying 1.5.
So are we assuming that the weather's not that bad? It's not going to be snowy. It's not going to be a wintry mix of rain and snow. Is that where we're kind of vibing on right now?
It's looking like first quarter flurries, fourth quarter flurries, some clean and
okay, but it's going to be cold. Listen, playing in the cold and how tough it is overrated. Yeah. If it's just cold, it's fine. And I think that the Bills, when I look at the number that I'm looking at, the over-under at 51.5, The Bills are going to have to score at least 30 points to beat this Ravens team. And, of course, that means that the Ravens are going to be pushing the envelope just as well. So I would go over. I think it's going to be I don't think it's going to be as tough to move the football, throw the football, if it's just cold. Now, if it looks like the Philly game, D-Mac, it's going to be a little bit different.
Yeah, and that's the thing. We have to understand, when it's snowing, it's not that cold. You know what I mean? It's colder when you don't get any snow. So in these type of games, yeah, it's cold, but it's not like when you put Gatorade in a cup and it freezes instantly.
Or you melt your toes because they're freezing on the little burner.
So we got two sides, and we got a total play there. We appreciate, as always, Todd Furman, his thoughts here on CBS Sports HQ. Todd, reboot that Wi-Fi for me. Thanks, pal.
Yeah. Yeah, Todd. Stop using my Wi-Fi.
More coming here on CBS Sports HQ straight ahead. It's a clash of epic quarterback proportions, so we got to call on one of our own. CBS NFL analyst Trent Green stopping by with his keys to victory for these two QBs. We got an NFC title game set. Saquon Barkley was going to be a big part of this, that we knew, but could they slow him more than they did in the regular season? Not even the snow could. 78 yards to pay dirt, 205 in total, the 5th most rushing yards in a postseason game in NFL history. Barkley putting the Eagles out in front, but LA with a last gasp. Driving down the field, a fresh set of downs. Trying to get to the plus side of the 50, they do that deep downfield. Puka Nacua corrals that one in, gets the feet down, and LA back in business, but now facing 4th down.